You don't need to be surrounded by explosions to be at war. There are battles no one sees. Battles that don't sound like gunfire, but hurt just the same. That don't leave scars on your skin, but tear at your soul. For many, war begins long before the uniform, before the first shot, even before understanding why they fight. A soldier is not born the day he picks up a weapon. He's born when he learns to obey without understanding, to endure without giving up, to move forward without certainty. And it's there, in that constant struggle between fear and duty, that Stoicism emerges, not as a theory, but as a necessity. Because when you face death, there's no room for excuses, no time for regrets. Only the mind remains, and what you do with it. In this video, we won't glorify war. We won't talk about tanks, flags, or empty patriotic speeches. We will talk about something deeper, quieter, and more real: the war fought within. Imagine this scene. A young man is crouched in a trench. His elbows are covered in mud. He hasn't slept in 3 days. He hears shouts, explosions, orders he barely understands. The sky is gray, but his mind is even darker. He doesn't know if he'll survive. He doesn't know if he'll see his family again. He's scared, very scared. Yet he doesn't move. He doesn't give up. He takes a deep breath, closes his eyes, and repeats one phrase: do what you can with what you have where you are. The rest is not up to you. That phrase, which could have come from Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus, doesn't need books to make sense. On the battlefield, it becomes flesh, becomes decision, becomes calm. This script isn't just about soldiers. It's about you, about me, about anyone who has ever felt like they're fighting a war no one sees. Broken relationships, failed projects, dark moments when everything seems lost. Silences that hurt more than a gunshot. It's about how to stay calm when everything around you screams for you to run. How to find your center amid chaos. And how Stoicism, that ancient philosophy many have forgotten, can become your greatest shield. Today, we won't talk about wars between countries. We'll talk about internal wars, because even if not all have stepped onto a battlefield, we've all fought wars within ourselves. And it's there, in that invisible ground, that the true Stoic soldier is born. Chapter 1. Chaos outside, calm inside. In war, there is no silence. There are screams, gunfire, desperate orders. Chaos is constant. It's as if the world has shattered into 1,000 pieces, and no one knows how to put it back together. But there's something even more terrifying than the noise outside, the noise inside. That constant murmur of the mind that never stops. What if it's me? What if I don't make it? What if I never see my loved ones again? That's where the real war begins. Many believe courage is having no fear. But Stoicism teaches something else. It teaches that fear is natural. Feeling it doesn't make you weak. What defines you is what you do with that fear. A Stoic soldier does not deny what he feels. He acknowledges it, observes it, but doesn't let it govern his will. Amid the chaos, his mind doesn't run wild like a runaway horse. He breathes, observes, and remembers the essential. You don't control what happens, but you do control how you respond. On the battlefield, this idea is not a philosophical luxury. It's survival, and it's not just war with weapons. It happens daily in life. When you lose a job, when someone betrays you, when everything falls apart, and you feel you can't go on. In those moments, the chaos outside is real. But if you also give up inside, you're lost. That's where Stoic practice comes in, not as a cold or insensitive pose, but as a deep discipline, learning to create an inner space where the world can't reach. A mental refuge where you can make decisions without being dragged into the emotional storm. The ancient Stoics called this ataraxy, a kind of unshakable tranquility. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It means that despite what you feel, you remain firm. Like the soldier crawling through the mud while bombs fall around him, but who doesn't lose his way. Not because he's not afraid, but because he chooses not to be conquered by it. That is the essence of applying Stoicism to conflict. Mastering your inner world when the outer world becomes unbearable. You don't need a war to understand this, because sooner or later, you'll face moments where everything shakes, where what you thought was safe disappears, where what you took for granted breaks, and at that moment, your power is not in controlling what happens. Your true power will be in responding calmly amid the chaos. That, and only that, makes you a Stoic soldier. Chapter 2. Fear and acceptance of fate. Fear is one of the first companions of every man who steps into war. You don't choose it. It comes alone. It sinks into your skin, your bones, your thoughts. It's that constant whisper that says, "You won't make it out." It's the trembling hands, the tight chest, the lost gaze. Yet, Stoicism doesn't propose eliminating fear. Not to suggest that would be to deny humanity itself. What it proposes is relating differently to it. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and soldier, wrote at night in his personal notebook while his empire crumbled. Surrounded by betrayals, diseases, and wars, he didn't write speeches to motivate his troops. He wrote for himself, to remind himself that everything he feared was already part of fate. That resisting fear didn't make it disappear. Accepting it was the first step to mastering it. He said, "Don't say that things are difficult. Tell yourself, I am stronger than this." Stoicism doesn't promise that fear will vanish, but it shows you that fear loses power when you stop resisting it. When you accept that you might die, you stop living anxiously. When you accept that you might lose, you stop living clinging. When you accept that you can't control the outcome, your energy focuses only on what depends on you. That acceptance, far from passivity, becomes an indestructible force. Because the one who has already accepted the worst has nothing left to fear. Imagine a soldier walking to the front, knowing it might be his last day. His face doesn't show euphoria or despair. It shows an unsettling serenity, not because he wants to die, because he has made peace with that possibility. That man doesn't fight fate. He doesn't deny it. He doesn't argue. He honors it. And from there, he acts with clarity, with focus, with composure. While others freeze or break, he remains. That's the difference between a man trapped by fear and one transformed by Stoicism. Now take this to your life. How many times has fear of rejection stopped you from speaking your truth? How many times has fear of failure made you settle for less? How many times has fear of loss chained you to lifeless relationships? Fear will always be there, but you can choose whether it controls you or strengthens you. Accepting fate isn't resigning. It's understanding that you don't own the outcome, but you do own the effort. That you aren't invincible, but you are unbreakable. That the only thing truly yours is the attitude with which you face the inevitable. That is the Stoic soldier's path, not to deny fear, not to be dragged by it, simply to move forward with it by your side, like an old enemy you no longer fear. Chapter 3. Control what depends on me. On the battlefield, you can do everything right and still lose. You can train, obey, plan, and still, chance can take it all away. A random shot, a bad order, a second of distraction. And that's where many break, because we grew up believing that if we did things right, everything would be fine. That effort guaranteed outcome. But it's not like that, not in war, and not in life. Stoicism, on the other hand, offers you a different idea. Brutally honest, but liberating. Do what depends on you. Let go of the rest. That simple phrase can change your life if you truly understand it. Because amid chaos, that line becomes your defense, your anchor, your guide. A Stoic soldier doesn't put his peace in the outcome. He knows he can't control if he wins or loses, but he can control if he shows up, if he gives his best, if he keeps calm, if he follows his code. Victory then stops being external and becomes internal. Victory is being who you choose to be. Even when the world tries to change you. In life, it's the same. You can't control if they love you, if they choose you, if things go as planned, but you can control if you act with integrity, if you speak truth, if you move forward despite fear. Epictetus said it clearly. There are things that depend on me and things that do not. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. Most people suffer because they don't make that distinction. They obsess over outcomes, others' opinions, what didn't happen, or what might happen. They drain their mental and emotional energy on things beyond their control, while neglecting what they can control. The Stoic soldier reverses that logic. He forgets what escapes his control. He focuses only on what's in his hands, and that gives him a huge advantage. He doesn't waste energy on the useless. He doesn't argue with fate. He doesn't drown in what-ifs. He doesn't live waiting for guarantees. He lives acting. And that action, born from inner control, becomes his form of freedom. Because even in extreme situations, where it seems everything is determined by others, there's still a space where a man can decide what to think, how to respond, what kind of person he wants to be. That small space is all a Stoic needs. War, in that sense, doesn't only destroy, it also reveals, shows with brutal clarity what you truly can control and what you cannot. And when you understand that, you stop living anxiously. You stop trying to predict everything, and you start focusing on what truly matters, your character, because that, only that, is truly yours. And when you protect it, nothing and no one can take away your peace. Chapter 4. Death as a Stoic teacher on the battlefield. Death is not a distant idea. It's a constant presence. It has a smell, a face, a sound. It's not philosophy. It's reality. A comrade falls nearby. A bomb destroys what was a shelter. A shot interrupts a conversation. Yet there are men who don't break in front of that. Men who, far from ignoring death, live with it without losing their reason. What sets them apart? The answer was given by the Stoics over 2,000 years ago. Death must not be feared, but remembered. Memento mori, remember that you will die, was not a threat, but advice. A compass, a way to keep your feet on the ground and your mind focused. Because when you remember death is inevitable, you stop living like you're eternal. You stop wasting time on things that don't matter. You stop postponing decisions. You stop fearing loss because you understand that sooner or later, everything is lost. On the front, the Stoic soldier understands this better than anyone. Every mission could be the last. Every farewell could be final. That's why he lives intensely, but not desperately. Attentively, but without attachment. Death doesn't paralyze him. It awakens him. Marcus Aurelius said clearly, "Don't act as if you are going to live 10,000 years. Death is chasing you. While you live, while you can, be good." And what does being good mean in this context? It's not about morality. It's about living with purpose, speaking truth, acting honorably, not leaving important words unsaid, not betraying yourself. Because when you live like this, death doesn't come as a thief. It comes as a natural conclusion, as a fair ending to a well-lived life. In daily life, we also avoid thinking about death, but that has a price. We become lukewarm, mediocre. By postponing again and again, we let life pass us by. The Stoic soldier doesn't make that mistake. Not because he's cold, because he learned that remembering death is the best way to value life. When you know everything can end at any moment, you stop acting as if you have unlimited time. You forgive faster. You think more often. You walk away from what harms you. And you get closer, finally, to what gives your life meaning. Death then stops being an enemy. It becomes a teacher, a guide, a counselor. And when you hold it close, you no longer need excuses. To change. Chapter 5. The warrior's silence amid the noise of war. There is a type of man who doesn't shout, who doesn't get restless, who doesn't react in desperation. He observes, waits, listens. That man is not absent. He is present in another way. His silence is not emptiness. It is accumulated power. It is control. It is strategy. It is composure. The ancient Stoics understood this kind of silence well. It is not the silence of one who has nothing to say, but of one who chooses when to speak and when not to. In war, speaking too much can cost your life. One mistake, one ill-spoken word, one impulsive reaction can expose your position or ruin an entire operation. But beyond the tactical aspect, there is something deeper. Silence also protects the mind. When you keep quiet, you have time to think, to process, to not get swept away by the emotional chaos that surrounds those who can't stop for a second. The Stoic warrior understands that most conflicts are not won by shouting louder, but by enduring longer with a clear mind. That silence is discipline and also restraint, not responding to insults, not reacting to collective fear, not feeding hatred, not showing unnecessary weakness, not because he's repressing, but because he has already decided not to give his energy to what doesn't deserve it. In the civilian world, this principle also applies. When you argue with someone who just wants to be right, when they provoke you seeking a reaction, when your environment fills with noise, judgments, and empty opinions, there, choosing silence is not cowardice. It is a form of invisible power. The Stoic does not speak to fill space. He speaks when his words can build, calm, or guide. And when it's not the time, he retreats into his center. The warrior knows that sometimes the wisest thing to do is say nothing, because silence, well used, can be stronger than 1,000 speeches. And not only that, it commands respect. When you don't need to prove yourself, defend yourself, or react, you project a strength that depends on no one, a strength born from absolute self-control. That silence is pure presence. It's the space where you can listen to your own thoughts, where you can choose your next step with clarity, where you can observe the enemy, external or internal, without losing yourself. And when you decide to speak or act, you do so with intention, not as an impulsive reaction, but as an expression of your deepest will. That's how the Stoic warrior lives. He doesn't speak just to speak. He doesn't explain what doesn't need explanation. And in his silence, an authority is forged that needs no announcement. Chapter 6. Discipline amid disorder. In the heat of battle, the world becomes unpredictable. Plans break down. Certainties disappear. What once seemed secure becomes uncertain. In an instant, amid that disorder, discipline is the anchor that holds the Stoic soldier. We're not just talking about physical discipline, getting up early, training, following orders, but a much deeper discipline. Mental and emotional discipline. Because without it, chaos wins. The mind scatters. The spirit weakens. Imagine a warrior lost in confusion, who reacts to every stimulus like a spring uncontrolled, who lets fear and despair dominate his will. That man not only risks his life, but the lives of those around him. Discipline, on the other hand, creates an inviolable inner space, a space where you can choose your attitude no matter what happens outside, where you can keep calm when others panic. Where you can act with purpose even when the outlook is bleak. This discipline is not acquired overnight. It's the fruit of constant training. Of telling yourself, day after day, that inner control is the only true freedom, of practicing mindfulness to avoid getting lost in useless thoughts, of remembering that although you can't control everything that happens to you, you can control how it affects you. History is full of soldiers who survived not because they were the strongest or bravest, but because they maintained discipline amid disaster. They understood that strength without discipline is chaos, that will without control is self-destruction, that true power lies not in brute force, but in the ability to master oneself. In your life, this lesson is just as valuable. When everything seems out of control, a crisis, a loss, a failure, your ability to maintain internal discipline will determine if you sink or rise. It's not easy. No one said it would be, but it's possible. And that's what separates those who survive from those who thrive. Because the hardest war is not outside. It's inside. And only those who cultivate discipline amid disorder can emerge victorious. Chapter 7. The war after the war. The battle ends, the noise fades, the bodies withdraw. But the war doesn't always end there. For many soldiers, the real battle begins afterwards. After the gunfire stops, silence remains. A heavy silence that cuts deep. In emptiness, where adrenaline, fear, and constant action once lived. There, in that forced calm, many feel lost. The ghosts of the past return. Invisible wounds hurt more than visible ones. The mind becomes a silent battlefield, and this is where Stoicism becomes a vital tool. Again, because the soldier who is strong in war is not always prepared for the war that comes after. The war after the war is the struggle to reclaim inner peace. It's learning to live with memory, loss, and scars. And Stoicism teaches that while you cannot control what happened, you can control how you integrate it. That the past is not a prison, but a lesson. That wounds can be teachers, not chains. Marcus Aurelius wrote, Death and life are a process. Nothing is lost. Everything transforms. Accepting that is essential to healing. To not get stuck in bitterness or resentment. To transform pain into strength. In civilian life, we all face our own wars after the war. Relationships that end, projects that fail, dreams that vanish. Stoic knows these moments are part of the cycle, that the end of one battle is the beginning of another. But he also knows every battle carries an opportunity to grow. To be reborn. And even though scars remain, the Stoic soldier moves forward with steady eyes and a tempered heart, because he knows war may end outside, but it never ends inside. And true strength is in continuing to fight, even when no one is watching. Chapter 8. Stoic Lessons for Your Daily Life. You don't need to have set foot on a real battlefield, but your life is full of small wars. Wars against anxiety, discouragement, doubt. Wars against procrastination, lack of motivation, uncertainty. Wars against people who don't understand your path, against circumstances that seem to conspire against you. In the middle of these daily battles, Stoicism is your best ally. Because all the lessons we learned about war, about fear, discipline, inner control, and acceptance are applicable to your life right now. First, remember, you can't control what happens outside. You can only control your response. If someone criticizes you, you can choose to take it as an attack or as an opportunity to improve. If you lose an opportunity, you can drown in frustration or learn and keep moving forward. If you feel fear, you can let it paralyze you or recognize it and act anyway. Second, discipline is key. Don't wait to feel like it to start. Don't look for motivation in results. Cultivate habits that bring you closer to your best self, even if you don't see it immediately. Like the soldier who trains every day to be ready, you must also train your mind and character. Third, don't fear death or loss. Understand that everything is transient, that life is a constant flow, that clinging to what happens causes suffering. When you accept impermanence, you live freer. And finally, remember the power of silence. Don't respond impulsively. Don't fuel unnecessary conflicts. Save your energy for what really matters. In your relationships, your work, your daily decisions, silence and calm are powerful weapons. So even if the war you face doesn't involve weapons or explosions, you're applying the same philosophy that sustains the soldier under fire. You're a Stoic soldier, a warrior of the mind, master of your emotions, free amid chaos, turning pain into power war in all its forms. Leave scars, some visible, others invisible. But Stoicism teaches us that pain is not a punishment, not a sentence. It's an opportunity, an opportunity to grow, to transform, to discover what we are really made of. The Stoic soldier knows suffering is inevitable, but he also knows suffering can be the seed of power. Every loss, every fear, every fall is a raw lesson, and only those willing to face them without running can polish that pain until it becomes strength. Who listen to this message have your own war. It may be a struggle against your doubts, your past, the world's expectations, but you also have the option to be the warrior who masters his fears, who doesn't let adversity break him, who transforms chaos into order and darkness into light. Remember always that true power isn't in controlling what happens outside. It's in controlling what happens inside. In your mind. In your attitude. In your will. War not define you. Let Yourself define the war. Because when you learn to govern yourself, you become invincible. You become a Stoic soldier. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe to Stoic Alchemist to keep exploring how to master your mind, strengthen your character, and live with purpose. Leave a like if this reflection helped you. Share the video with someone who needs to find calm amid chaos. And turn on notifications so you don't miss the next content that will bring you one step closer to your best version. Remember, the true war is won inside, and here we are to accompany you on that path. Until next time, Stoic Warrior.